What's up, you beautiful chuds, and welcome to the Let's Talk Horror channel podcast, and welcome to the Creep Zone, where we have very honest, unrated, unfiltered conversations about something from the world of horror. On this episode, we are talking about, straight away, it goes to show sort of like where I am or what I'm really trying to do with the show, because Dark City, if you're an old man like me, you know what Dark City is. A lot of people today, sadly, it is one of those movies that I'm talking about that I would consider like an underappreciated gem of a movie. You know, it is a movie that quite a few people out there haven't necessarily seen, a lot of people don't know about. So for those that are watching this now or listening to it, I'm hoping that you know what the fuck we're talking about, because we're going to talk absolutely loads about, as I've already said, and you clicked on it, you already know what it is, the movie Dark City. And I'm really excited about it because there's a lot to talk about this movie. Now, I might have a few takes about this movie that, you know, as we watch it from, you know, when you're kids to getting older and we watch it over time, there are things that you might notice a little bit more, whether that's for the good or for the bad. We'll talk all about that. That's the good thing about having these conversations about these movies. But with me to talk all about Dark City, I've got DeadBeat Chad from the Pretty Little Podcast. I've said that right, haven't I? It is the Pretty Little Podcast. I write it down and I get so worried that I'm going to get it wrong every single time. But he has returned to the show. Thank you for coming back.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so you all know, anybody that knows the show knows that we have already spoken about another movie called Seven. And as I said, before we sort of started recording, I'm like, we've already set ourselves up really like to basically talk about only certain types of movies, because of course, when we spoke about Seven, we were talking about how visually it is one of the greatest movies of all time. And now we're talking about Dark City, which once again, visually, one of the greatest visual movies of all time. So now we just have to keep going.
Right. And you know, it's funny because you had mentioned like not many people, unless you're our age, know about this movie. Well, I think one of the worst things that this movie did as far as being recognized, first of all, the title is boring as hell.
Yeah.
That is not a memorable title. I think the worst thing about this movie is the title. I really do. It's just not eye-catching. It's not interesting. It's not, you know, and when this came out in theaters, I do remember seeing, you know, spots here and there on TV, like trailers or whatever. But like the biggest thing they did to promote this was a Super Bowl ad.
Oh, really?
There was like very, very little marketing going into this film at all. And, you know, the main character was not a well-known actor. You know, there are some well-known actors in the film, but the main character was not very well known, mixed with that poster that came out back in the, you know, the one I'm talking about. Not the one for the remake, or not the remake, but the remaster or whatever. The original poster was bland as hell too.
Yeah.
You know, it just, it's something you would see and just keep walking. It's just not interesting at all. And I think that has a lot to do with why this movie, it in my opinion, it was a failure. I mean, it had, I think it was a $27 million budget or something like that. And it just barely made over that worldwide. So not a mega hit at all. And then it came out in a time where it was overshadowed by a lot of other things. You had Titanic still killing it in theaters. And you had Saving Private Ryan. The very next year, and even just months later, you had The Matrix come out, which just took everything out of the way. Like nothing else mattered once The Matrix came out.
And the interesting part of the similarities as well that we'll talk about between this and The Matrix as well, which is like pretty fucking mental as well.
Yeah, we'll get into that too, I'm sure. But yeah, it's unfortunate because it is an interesting film. I mean, it's a lot going on in this movie because it's a horror film. It's a psychological horror. It is a science fiction fantasy. It is a neo-noir detective story coming together in this like weird collage of ideas that should not work together, but blend very well due to the writing. And was it Alex? What's his last name? The director?
It's Alex Proyas. Proyas. Is it? I think it is. We'll talk about that. But yeah, you're right. Like, yeah, it's
he was one of the writers too.
Yes.
And he worked on The Crow, which was another fantastic film. But yeah, we'll get into all that. I'm sorry, I'm rambling.
No, that's all right. That's all right. But yeah, so with Dark City, as we said, like it was released in 1998. So as you rightly said, just before The Matrix, and of course some very big movies around the time. Directed by Alex. Also, I am probably saying his name wrong, but Proyas. I have just
Proyas,
put
yeah.
The Crow here. Obviously, he also made the Will Smith movie I, Robot.
Yep.
But The Crow, I mean, The Crow is literally like one of my, I mean, it's in my top 10 movies of all time. It's one of my most watched
Oh
movies
yeah.
ever, and The Crow is unbelievable. But it's also interesting to see like this doesn't really feel like The Crow whatsoever when I was watching it, apart from like the odd moments where like the rooftop stuff, then you're like, oh, okay, there's The Crow a little
Yeah.
bit. But I feel like it's a good testament to, and obviously like so much of it, of course, is at night because it has to be because of the story. But it feels, when I was watching it, I was just like, yeah, like it goes to show him his talents as a director, because it doesn't for me feel too much like The Crow. Does that make
hmm
sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, the Crow it benefited from being a comic book
Yeah.
adaptation. So and that even kind of had its own built-in fan base thing. Because if if the Crow was just an original concept, it may have just kind of failed the same way this movie did. I don't know, but yeah, there are some similarities, mainly with the camera work, like you said. Anything on the rooftop, there's a lot of like cameras going through, or just those
Yeah.
extreme close-up shots going through the city. But other than that, yeah, the story itself is completely different. I think that this is a more, as much as I love The Crow, and don't get me wrong, I think that this is a more interesting movie. Whereas
Yeah,
I think
like
The Crow is a more
concept
interesting
wise.
story.
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, I think they're both terrific. iRobot's great. There's not really anything he did like Gods of Egypt as well,
Yeah.
which I saw once. I think I saw that in theaters long ago. But yeah, I think after that movie failed, he just kind of,
Was like,
took a
yeah, he was
step
like, fuck
back.
it.
Yeah, he's mainly worked on like documentaries and or I'm sorry, short films and like music videos, which are no longer relevant today.
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know,
So
short
he's due
films
for a
and music
comeback.
video.
Yeah, he's due
Yeah,
for a
yeah,
comeback. Fingers crossed. The movie starring Rufus Sewell, who, as you mentioned earlier, he's like the star of the movie, but not really a star that people really know about.
right.
We've got the absolutely like one of the all-time most beautiful women that's ever existed, Jennifer Connelly.
Yep.
Keith Sutherland is in this. Richard O'Brien, William Hurt, Melissa George. I mean, it's got a lot of people in this cast as well, and I do like the fact. I mean, there are going to be some things I talk about which I think don't necessarily work so well, but I don't always. One of the things when I was watching it the other day, and throughout the years of watching the movie, I don't ever feel like it feels really overpopulated with characters. I think it does, like it has a
No.
lot of characters, but I don't ever feel like they overstay their welcome, which is a rarity, because sometimes you're like, oh fucking hell, there's too many people. I think the as we go through it, the confusion for someone as stupid like me can be sometimes like the filmmaking side of it, the editing side of it, and that's what I think sometimes can be the problem with this movie. But
Mhm.
that's on me. We'll talk all about that anyway. But I don't ever think it feels overpopulated with the characters, even though there's loads of them in it. On IMDb, it's 7.5 out of 10, so still good on IMDb. And
Yep.
actually, quite surprisingly, 78% on Rotten Tomatoes, which surprised me actually, because once again, whether this movie being, as we both said, sort of an underappreciated movie, probably not known as much as it should, it does mean that sort of the people that are watching it still think to themselves, well, this is a bloody good movie still, because otherwise it'd
Yep.
be in the 30% and so on.
Right. And yes, you are absolutely right. This movie, I think it deserves. Well, I feel like that's pretty accurate. You know what I mean? I think it's look, there, like you said, there are problems with the film. It's not a perfect movie. It's a perfect movie for me.
Yeah,
And I think that when it comes to this film in particular, it's doing a lot with special effects at a time when special effects were not great. Let's
yeah,
just say that 1998 CGI effects do not hold up,
no,
but they do in this movie, mainly because of how smart they hid the flaws that CGI has with shadows and darkness. and that to me is what that's that's the hallmark of this movie. That's what I remember the most is the special effects.
Yeah. Yeah. It is a movie that is like a special effects extravaganza. There's a
Yeah.
lot in it, but it doesn't. There's not really too much in this movie that takes you out of the movie for the time to make you go, "Well, that's fucking shit." Like there are so many movies that were
Yeah.
made later, and even now we all like, "Jesus Christ, that's fucking bad." But there's not really too much in this movie that makes you go, "Oh yeah," it's not laughably bad. There's nothing that makes you go, "Oh fucking hell,"
Well,
and
one
you're
thing.
apart from one
There's
thing.
there's one thing in this movie that is kind of laughably bad, and we will get to that when we introduce characters and things, because I got some things to say.
Well, absolutely. Well, we're
But
getting to all of that. So anyway, so Google synopsis wise, John awakens in a hotel with no memory and learns that he is wanted for a series of murders. While seeking the answers, he discovers a group of aliens called the Strangers who are controlling the city. Of course, that's a Google synopsis. It's as shit as they're going to be.
yeah,
But it basically is just trying to tell you sort of what happens without telling you what the movie is about. But that's Google. That's why I like adding it in. One of the things, of course, I always like to do before we get into the movie is, do you remember the first time you saw Dark City?
I do. I do. This was a rental. When it was in theaters, I wasn't old enough to go see it, but it was me and like an ex-girlfriend had rented it, and I fell asleep. I'll be honest. The first time I saw this movie, I did not like it
Yeah.
at all. I thought it was way too slow, way too boring, way too quiet, and it just put me right to sleep. This is something that just over time I have learned to appreciate, because it was probably around the third time I had seen this movie that I just was like, okay, this I get it now, and this is one of those that, like you, I had it on DVD. I think it was probably in a whole like lot that I had purchased or something, and I was just like, okay, I'll watch this since I have it now. And then I went and upgraded to the Blu-ray, and yeah, it's one of those films that, like, love it or hate it, you do remember it. It's just
Yeah, yeah.
my first time watching this was a rental that I kind of fell asleep, and unfortunately so. Yeah.
You're right. I mean, I'm glad you said that because I've sort of been the same sort of boat with you. I think it's like almost like a film that matures with you as you mature. Like, if that
Yes.
makes sense, you know what I mean? Like, there's so much good in this movie, but it is a very adult movie, and I don't mean like you know what I mean. It is. There's so much going on in regards to like the concept, the idea, the story that like sometimes it might get a little bit convoluted if you were like a kid trying to understand it all. And like you mentioned
Yeah.
as well, where it's a very slow moving movie, even though the edits are fucking constant, but the actual movie itself, it feels like quite a slow pace, like trying to get the story from here to there and where we
Right.
go. So yeah, I'm sort of with you that when I first saw this movie, I mean, mine's very easy. I literally watched it on VHS, and I wish I still had the VHS because I do remember the cover we had, and it was like a cover, and the writing was Dark City, but the writing was in orange on the
Mhm.
cover of it, so it was like a poster sort of thing. But that's the cover I had on like VHS, and I remember having it, watching it. But it was one that I would like put on as every now and again, and over time, over the years, it has been a movie that I have, as I've got old, and I mean, it's nicer to say matured rather than getting old as fuck. But as I've matured, I feel like the movie, yeah, matures with you, and you start to like appreciate what the movie is a lot more as you get older. Like it's gone from a movie that I would be like, yeah, I mean, it's worth watching, to now a movie that I would be like, I recommend you watch that. Like, and of course, we recommend it because we're doing a podcast episode all about it. But now,
Yeah.
hopefully, it's one of those movies where this goes out there. If people have never heard of Dark City or don't know about it, it's like I would absolutely recommend you sort of take yourself back to 1998, and not literally, we don't have time machines, but you can watch it and take yourself back to 1998 for a movie called
Yeah.
Dark City that not many people really sort of talk about or have seen. And but it definitely is a movie that, especially I would say today, is a movie that people should probably see more, especially if you're like an aspiring filmmaker as well, because obviously we talk about uh,
Oh yeah.
how visually
Absolutely.
stunning this movie is as well. So
But
we get into all that.
it's also it's also a movie that requires an attention span. and multiple viewings anyway, because you don't know what the hell is going on in the first 10 minutes of this movie unless you've seen it before.
Yeah.
And once you have seen it, all of that makes perfect sense, and it's kind of like an Easter egg, in a way. It's because I watched this twice preparing for this episode, and the second time that I watched it, I paid very close attention to what was going on in the first 10 minutes of the movie, and just callbacks to things that happen later on, and the way that they swap out characters, and there's a reason they do that. I caught that on the second viewing as well. And it's definitely requires an attention span, and you definitely need to watch it at least twice, I think.
Yeah, at least twice, maybe 5 or 10. But absolutely. And also, I do want to mention, when it comes to my run through as well, for anybody out there, and even yourself as well, that if what happened is that obviously where this movie isn't necessarily regularly available in the UK streaming wise, I did buy the 4K because I had it on DVD, and of course it is a movie that you should absolutely have on 4K because it looks stunning, and it is the type of movie that lends itself to 4K. Like as I said, even the bits that don't necessarily look good, they don't look fucking awful in 4K. It just adds to the charm. But what I will say is that the only version that I had was the director's cut. So for anybody out there might be like, what the fuck is scene that you were talking about? Just don't worry. We'll go through it. The director's cut ways.
The Blu-ray that I have has both versions.
Right.
And
okay.
I think the only difference is that the theatrical version, I think, has like a synopsis at the beginning of the film with narration, kind of explaining what the hell is going on in this world. And I think that it needs to not be there. The director's cut's the way to go with this film, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you're exactly right. Well, luckily, that's the one we're talking about because it's the only one I have access to. So we're talking about the director's cut. But the film opens, we pan down from the night sky until we see a limping Jack Bauer. As usual, I'm going to be referring to everybody who's in this movie by completely different names as to who they would normally be, or by their names, because I do not remember character names in movies. It's one of my flaws one of my many flaws. So I could be watching some of my favorite movies, and will I remember their names? No. So that's why he's going to be Jack Bauer or many other names in this movie. But he's clock watching. Go on.
I actually took notes. So I've got Daniel Schreiber, Dr. Schreiber is his name in the movie.
Dr. Schreiber. Or commonly known as Jack Bauer, or a vampire from the Lost Boys. But anyway, but he's clock watching, and then we cut to the title card, Dark City, motherfuckers. And then we went back to the city through a window in a motel where someone's in a bath, and he seems to not have an absolute clue what the hell is going on. Also, gross milky bath water. Not getting in that. It's fucking gross.
I was going to say, this scene when he wakes up out of the bathtub, it's like he was this close to being in a Saw movie, and he just lucked out and got to be in Dark City,
Yeah, you're exactly right, yeah. But as he picks up, some things around the room, flashes of memories sort of start to come back until we get a phone call from Kiefer Sutherland. Once again, I'm calling him something different than the movie, who knows what's going on, and he wants to help him. Throughout the movie, I do find it interesting as to, he's it's so difficult to know. And once again, I think that's the perfect casting of someone like Kiefer Sutherland. He's not going through the movie and going, is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? What's he going to do? And I think that's great casting with him, because straight away he sort of almost sets himself up as a good guy, but then things happen in the movie and you're I don't fucking know with him. But that's why it's so great having someone like Kiefer Sutherland in a movie, because you're I don't know what he's going to do in this. And he's a very unpredictable actor, and that's why I really love him. Yeah. You get him in roles like this. And I mean, in this, visually, he looks so different. I mean, he's fucking great.
Right. And this phone call is, he's giving him so much exposition here. Kiefer Sutherland he's talking to John Murdoch, and he's trying to explain to him in 3 seconds, 6 years worth of shit to process. And he just ends the call with, "Do you understand me?" And I'm just how would anybody understand this? You have to finish watching this movie before you understand this phone call at all.
Exactly. Yeah, you're exactly right. Yeah, you are. But then things get from bad to worse as there's a half-naked woman dead on the floor as well. She's got spirals cut into her, so it's very much jigsaw-like. But she's got
Yes.
spirals cut into her, and he absolutely legs it. Or the clerk, sorry, the guy that's working at the thing, he tells him that he's been there for 3 weeks. So
Yes.
already we basically know that this guy's got amnesia or something. Like he
Mhm.
ain't got a fucking clue. He's woken up to milk water. Kiefer Sutherland's giving him a call. He doesn't understand what the fuck's going on. There's a naked woman dead. He's having a pretty bad morning. Although, obviously, of course, it's not morning because it's always dark where they are in this dark
Right.
sea. He doesn't know what is going on. He leaves the hotel and his suitcase. So basically, he throws a suitcase in the river. I'm not sure. Why does he throw the suitcase in the river?
I'm not sure why he does that.
Yeah, I don't really get why.
That
Because he
is
goes
confusing
out
to
and
me
then he
as
just
well,
throws
but
it.
yes, he does. And was it the suitcase? Because well, all right, well, there's another scene later on. Maybe it's just a flashback he's having of looking at the briefcase or
Maybe.
suitcase. But yes, he definitely throws that that suitcase in the water, and I don't know why.
No,
Because there's
because
items in it.
yeah, exactly. And you would be like thinking like, oh, well, I should probably try and keep that because that might help me piece together what the absolute shit is going on. But like he just
Right.
like comes out the hotel and then like just chucks a fucking briefcase in the water and you're like, well, that obviously that's not going to help him whatso bloody ever. And then also we do like sort of visually we see that there's like water like bloody everywhere, like it's like some of the town's this, some of it's in like water and all that sort of stuff.
There is
Uh,
one thing that you had left out.
yes,
It's pretty important later on. After he wakes up out of the bathtub and he's fumbling around, he knocks over a goldfish bowl with a goldfish in it, and
yes,
then puts the goldfish in the bathtub that he woke up in to save it. And that is important later on. But
yes.
I just wanted to throw that out there.
No, and please keep doing that because I will fucking forget
Hey,
everything else as we go
hey,
through it. But you're
absolutely.
exactly right because it does keep coming up, and you've got a way better memory than me as well. But anyway, so yeah, he leaves basically chucks his briefcase into water that I don't even know. But then so they go up to inspect his room, but then gets attacked by three very pale people. We don't really know who these people are as of just yet, but we know that they're very pale and so on. One of them being Richard O'Brien from Crystal Maze, and of
Yeah.
course the Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Hmm.
He in this is super creepy. I think that there is some performances sort of that stand out in this, and his performance in this, I think he's very good in this movie, Richard O'Brien, which
Yes.
especially in the UK, we grew up with watching him in Crystal Maze, and I don't know if you have like the Crystal Maze over in where you are, but
I've seen it. Yeah.
yeah, and he like we loved him from that, but you never expect somebody like him in Crystal Maze to be in the character that he is in this movie. He's so
Mhm.
there's something he plays like the creep factor up to 11, and the way that he sounds like a snake, like sometimes, and
Yep.
once again it's like a perfect casting for a role like this, like I've already said with like Kiefer Sutherland, where it just works for the movie and actually makes the movie better because of it. But basically, he can make people go to sleep by touching their heads, which would come in handy. I'd like to be able to just do that when people are annoying me, and I'm
Yeah,
just like sleep,
absolutely.
sleep.
I have really bad insomnia. I would love to have that power. That'd be
Yeah,
awesome.
just to be able to do
Yeah,
it to
it'd be
yourself,
very
sleep.
handy. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then straight away, we cut to one of the most beautiful women of all time, like I've already said, Jennifer Connelly. And so much is already happening in this movie. It's absolutely mental. Like, it's interesting that, like, it is a slow paced movie, but something is constantly always happening in this movie. So it's so
Mhm.
strange because it's like, I don't know, it's just a weird put together movie because it takes a while for things to happen, but at the same time, things are fucking constantly happening. Like the start of the movie is just like we're in it, it's relentless, it's constantly going, we're meeting all these characters, we're sort of like, what the fuck is going on? Even the
Mhm.
characters are like, what the fuck is going on? And then of course, we're back, we're at a club with Jennifer Connelly. But she's having a bit of a sing song, but she gets a call from the quack, or obviously a doctor, to go and see him, who ends up being Kiefer Sutherland. It
Yep.
seems he used to be the doctor to Jennifer Connelly's husband. We assume, of course, is the guy in the milky bathtub at the start. But he's basically Kiefer Sutherland is essentially saying that this guy has had a psychotic break. Obviously, you know, as we go through the movie, it's more than that. But essentially, he's
Right.
saying he's had a psychotic break and he doesn't know where he is, and then it sort of like leads to like the sort of hunt to try and find him, doesn't it? And so on like that.
Yeah, there's a reason why he needs him for sure.
Yes,
And yeah,
absolutely.
we will definitely get into that. But I think that the way that this movie functions is the main character here is a blank slate. He's the
Yeah,
audience. He is learning things as we are learning things, and that is absolutely essential to a movie like this to keep you interested. And that's why I think that opening narration had to go, because once
yeah.
you know everything, you don't really care about following this character around because there's nothing to know. You already know it. And I also wanted to throw in there, like, Jennifer Connelly in this movie. Like, don't get me wrong, she is a beautiful woman. She is a great actress. She is not a good singer. These songs,
So
I don't know
the
if that's actually her singing or not, but
yes.
these musical numbers are really, really not good.
So I'm glad that you said that because it is in my notes and I almost feel really bad for fucking saying it, right? Because
Yes, me too. Me too.
because it is her singing, but I don't know whether, and I think it is in, but basically I think that in the theatrical cut the singing is different and it is a different singer, but the director's cut is her singing.
Oh,
And
okay.
that's why I thought the same thing, because like when you have like, you know, these scenes, and I'm so glad you said it because it makes me feel not so much like a dick, but like when you have scenes in movies like this, you know, like the person on stage is always like they fucking wow you, they've got this greatest voice. But I actually like the fact that her voice isn't like the voice that's going to be like the voice of a fucking generation. You know what I mean? Like, I actually like the voice, the fact that it almost feels a little bit, and we talk like loads, but it's almost like a little bit David Lynch-esque, because it's like
Yeah.
it
Yeah,
feels a little
absolutely.
bit off that in this movie you've got somebody that, of course, as we say, Jennifer Connelly, fuck it, like always will be my crush, but
Yeah.
her voice isn't great.
They just kind of managed to take all of the charisma out of her, and I
Yeah.
don't know why they decided to take that direction, but it's very odd, and you're gonna
Yeah.
notice it. It's gonna stand out for
Yeah,
sure.
you're exactly, and I'm glad that you said it. I'm glad that you know. I like, because I thought I might be the only one, and I thought if I say that, I'm gonna sound like a fucking douche. But
No, you're not alone. You're not
I'm
alone
glad
for
that I'm
sure.
not alone, because I was just like, maybe it's just me, and maybe she's got like, you know, the voice of an angel, but I don't know. But I mean, it's not bad. It's just like not the type of voice that you expect to come out like of somebody singing in a movie like this, where you expect it to be like all the people are sitting there going, Jesus Christ, she's fucking brilliant. Instead, they're all sitting there like, she's not great, actually, is she?
Yeah, and again, it's one of those things where you have a scene with Jennifer Connelly singing on stage, and when it's done, you're like, "Oh, thank God that was short," because these are
Yeah,
short songs. It's not a full song or anything.
yeah,
But like, how do you do that? How do you like? Oh, cool. I don't have to look at her anymore. You know,
yeah.
and whatever. It is what it is.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But once again, it's one of those things that, like, once again, obviously part of the director's cut, but almost like adds to, you know, the charm and sometimes the quirkiness, the peculiarness of like what this movie is, and I love it more for it, you know.
Mhm.
But then we cut to William Hurt. He's also in this, who's playing an accordion, which for me is annoying because I fucking hate the accordion. So so that I always
Which is
find that.
honestly a great way to introduce this character too, because that accordion comes up later on. So it's another thing that you had to pay attention to, and when you rewatch, you understand. You know, and it's this is I think the way that they introduced this character was brilliant. I really
Yeah.
do.
Yeah, as much as it annoyed me because I hate the accordion, it makes sense and does the right things for the movie.
You're right.
But the phone rings, and the next thing we know, he's at the hotel from the start. Obviously, we figure out that he's a cop and he's at the crime scene. We're
Yep.
now back with the man. Also, in that scene, I think like you're right when you said it's where in that scene where he goes to the hotel, he sees the goldfish, doesn't he? I think in the water,
Yep.
in the bathtub.
Well,
Um,
yeah, and that he's talking to one of the other detectives, and he's like, you know, what kind of serial killer saves the life of a goldfish? You know, and
yeah.
there's a reason why he makes that statement, because we will find out later on that he's having his own doubts about what's going on in this world as well.
Yeah,
So
exactly right. We're now back with the man with no memory, Murdoch. No memory, Murdoch. That's what I've called him. Who runs into a blonde who's Melissa George, who gives him the eye. And he heads into a super weird looking cafe place that's essentially like a giant vending machine. I didn't really know what else to call it, but it's like a giant, like it's a cafe, but
It's an
everything's
automat.
like, oh, right, okay, yeah, you're right. There you go. It's like an automat. Like, is that a real thing?
Oh yeah, yeah. They have these in like New York City.
Oh, really?
These are a thing. Not necessarily anymore, but yes, this type of thing was definitely a thing. You could go in and it, like you said, you put money in and you pull open a little. The door is see through, so you know what you're paying for. You know the food items are in their own little cubbies, and you just put money in, open the door, and grab something. And then they have like booths that you can sit at, tables and things. But yeah, these things exist.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, I didn't even know that they ever existed. I just thought they were something they made for the movie. But also, it's always funny. Like, imagine, I don't know. I just think to myself, I don't like. Does that work in real life? And maybe it does. I don't know. But it's a weird looking. As I said, it's like a cool like sort of idea concept. Also, it adds to the visual element of the movie as well because you're like these big wide shots of these walls and stuff. It looks fucking great. But of course, we'll talk about all the visual side of this movie as well. And then somehow the man of mystery with no mind uses his mind, because we get the first sense of something else going on here. But he busts open one of the compartments using his, what do they call it? Like psychokinetic?
The tuning.
The tuning. The tuning,
yeah.
That's it. A bit like The Shining, but without anything.
Yes.
But he uses the tuning to basically bust open the compartment because he's got to get his wallet back. And then, sort of as a viewer, you're like, oh, okay, what the sort of the shit is going on here? Because it's more than just somebody who's lost his mind, and then it's like like there's the extra depths to where this like the idea and the concept that goes with this, because you could have like taken all of that out of this movie and it could have just been a movie where somebody wakes up and obviously they've made millions of movies like this, where somebody wakes up, don't know who they are, there's a dead body, and then now people are after him, and in the end you find out it's not him that's killed him, and it'll be like William Hurt or something like that, you know what I mean? And that's the movie normally. But in this, you're like, at this point you're like, oh, hang on, he's got like superhero powers and stuff, and but it adds like the once again, it adds to like the uniqueness of what like the concept of what this movie is. And then of course makes it more intriguing as you're going through it, because you've got all this like the neo-noir sort of story, the detective story and everything that's going on, but then you've got superpowers and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's just something, a little something here, a little something there to lead you on and keep you interested and make you pay attention.
Yeah, absolutely. At this point as well, of course, as I say, you're like, what's going on? The cops are chatting to Murdoch, but then Melissa George comes in and asks she starts basically talking to him. We cut back to there obviously, of course, this movie, what it does is that every like less than 2 seconds it feels like it's cutting to a different character, a different scene and everything like that. Like, this film is constantly cutting, constantly editing. So throughout this synopsis, that is literally what is going to happen. It's like, you're going to be with these people, then you're going to be with the next people, and this and that and this and that, and it does that a lot. But we're back with William Hurt at the crime scene from earlier, where he's trying to figure out shit. Then he goes back at the police station. Jennifer Connelly comes in to have a chat with him about her missing husband, because obviously they're still trying to find him. Back with Murdoch and Melissa George. She's getting absolutely starkers in front of him, of course, for no reason whatsoever. And also, bless her, it was like her first film role, but she ends up being completely naked. She doesn't need to be, but she is. And also there's a kid there. Of course, the kid comes back later on in the movie, but there is a kid there. Is it her kid? I mean, I'm assuming it is. I don't.
That's what I assumed. They don't expressly say it or anything, but I assume that yes, that's her daughter.
Yeah, because that's the other thing. Because when I was watching it for my prep the other day, I was just like, you're exactly right. They don't actually turn around and be like, that's her daughter. So then I started like, because this movie is one of those movies that does make you sort of question everything, that you were like, you start questioning it and you're like, is that her daughter? Is it really her daughter? Is she just like some street kid? I don't know. Like,
it could be any of those things, and any of them work, because I don't think it really matters that much, but it's just one of those things that, it's just assumed, I think, that it's her daughter.
Yeah, absolutely. But as they're having sort of a conversation and all that sort of stuff, he decides to wander off again, where he karate kicks some wood off a door and heads to Shell Beach, Although it's not quite a beach, then there's the three pale people, including Richard O'Brien, turn up and he tries to make him go to sleep with his hand. But he tried doing it earlier, but this time with Murdoch, it doesn't work. And then you're like, oh shit, he might have met his match.
He
So
can
yeah, so
tune.
yeah, absolutely. The tune, it doesn't work. He just can't make him go to sleep where he's like, go to sleep or whatever he says, or sleep. But it doesn't fucking work. But maybe instead of that, maybe a fucking knife will. You're like, all else fails. If your powers don't work,
Right.
pull out a knife. Pull out a knife. That will work. But then the mug, he's an absolute mug because he steps on a loose plank and he falls through. And then Murdoch, he uses his psychic powers, whatever it is, the tuning, to basically, he creates like even more holes in the floor. And basically, like, I mean, I sort of wanted all of them to fall through the floor because it'd be quite funny, but they didn't. But then Richard O'Brien returns behind him, flying through the air like a gothic bald Superman. And then Murdoch also takes a tumble, and then there's some weird shit coming out of their heads. It's a bit like The Matrix, but weirder. It's like, I don't know what it is, but it's like weird, like fucking tentacle goop shit, and I don't really know.
So during this scuffle, they're on top of a billboard for Shell Beach, and it's got a woman laying down on the beach on a towel, and she's waving with her hand, and the hand falls off, and it hits one of the strangers in the head, and it splits his head open. And when he falls on the ground, you see like what they actually are come out of his head, which is just this translucent, like goopy spider type thing. I don't know what you would call it, but it kind of looks like a face hugger.
Yeah,
like
it does. It's like
face hugger.
It's like a matrix. It's like if a face hugger was in the Matrix, then that's what it. Like, it reminds me of like the Sentinels in the Matrix. Like that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But in somebody's bloody head. You know what I mean? Like, but it's a cool scene. Like, it's essentially like a psychic fight scene. Like, it's cool. I like it. Like, he's very well executed. It looks good. And then obviously Richard O'Brien is absolutely brilliant. But then after this scene, very quickly, we cut off. Basically, we're in a place where there's absolutely loads of bald people, including Richard O'Brien, and essentially it looks like it's like a cosplaying event for cenobites. It's a bit like the count. It's a cross between. It's almost as if Clive Barker directed a Star Wars movie where they're having like the council meetings with cenobites. That's what they remind me of. Like,
it's very, very much that. Clive Barker, perfect. That works here. But all of them look like Pinhead. They look like they're just a bunch of pinheads standing around. But this scene is really cool, and this is also where we find out like how the color in this movie works too. Because anytime you're dealing with this group, which they're under the city, kinda, but they're underneath like what is known to be the city.
Yeah.
And the tones here are very blue with like green lighting, whereas when you're in the city, it's very like yellow due to the lamps, the lampposts and things like that. So, and then whenever you're inside of an interior, like inside of a house or something, it's very warm, and inviting. And I just thought that was important to mention because they took the time on the Blu-ray to talk about that in the bonus features. So it was a very important aspect of their film process, was getting the different colors for the different locations and the different characters and things like that. So it's noticeable. It's appreciated.
And the thing is as well, like, obviously, like, and it's something that it feels a little bit lost in modern cinema and stuff as well, but like color grading, color tones, everything, like, it's so important to movies, and this is a big reason for it, because obviously, like, sometimes, and we obviously predominantly, it does happen a lot in horror, there's a lot of like blues and stuff like that, that you use in horror, and that's because you as the viewer, it sort of gives you that sort of like the fear factor element, the fear side of it, because of just by using, the coldness of what blue, having just a blue tint or a blue coloring over. And as you said, like, once you start getting like in the moment thing where you've got like the yellows, the warmth and stuff, it's like, it makes you feel different. And that's what's so good about like, movie making when it's done right, because they will understand how every part of every aspect of filmmaking is so important to tell the viewer how they're supposed to feel or react. So yeah, it's really cool that that was a process for them, that was a thought where
Mhm.
they're like, well, we want to make it, and also I do like the fact as well that we find out something a little bit later on, but I'll say it now, that obviously one of the big things that they like that they can't handle, that they're is water. Like water's a big sort of thing that
Yes.
they can't be around, and obviously water is blue, so it's like quite interesting that the thing that they're using in the movie to sort of sell these horrible sort of like nasty sort of characters from another world, but the blue is like what is selling that, but even though the blue water is the stuff that terrifies them. So
Right.
it's pretty clever. But yeah, so it looks like, as I said, a cosplaying Cenobites thing directed by Clive Barker. We're now with William Hurt, who drops off the beautiful Jennifer Connelly. He's questioning whether her husband can commit these murders, but she can ask him to his face because he's there hiding in the shadows. But he still hasn't got a clue of what's going on. Also, imagine forgetting that you're married to Jennifer Connelly. That would fucking suck. Like, I mean? But especially when you've forgotten everything. And for one of the first things she tells you is that she had an affair, which also would suck. So not only have you forgotten that you're married to Jennifer Connelly, the thing that you probably do want to forget is that she flat out tells you that she had an affair, and you're like, well, that fucking sucks. Like,
Yeah,
imagine
and
being that guy.
what's weird about that too is like, in this scene, she's already under the assumption that he has amnesia, right? She's had
Yes.
his doctor tell him, the detective is telling her, and now he is literally in front of her saying, "I don't remember anything." So why the hell would you bring that up?
I know.
Just keep it to
There's so
yourself.
many, exactly, and there's so many other things that if, like, obviously throughout the movie, there's certain things that you learn about, like, is this real? Did this happen? Did they meet? All that sort of stuff. But like, if you're thinking of anything, maybe like try and like, if you're trying to make somebody come out of like, not having a memory of amnesia, saying that you had an affair with somebody is probably not the greatest thing to try and help them come out of
Right.
having having it.
Exactly. Anyways,
Um,
yeah, that was just kind of weird, but
yeah, it's so
it is what
weird.
it is.
It is weird, and then it makes you just feel sort of sorry for him as well. But then William Hurt, of course, like after this bit, he sort of ambushes him and he tries to take him in, but Jennifer Connelly gets in the way, and Murdoch basically gets to a dead end, and somehow his weird mind stuff, basically, he makes a door open, and then of course, like at that point, you're like, what the shit? Because at this point, you don't necessarily really know like the extent of like what he can do, what his powers are, all that sort of stuff.
Right.
And then this is like the first time where you're like, oh, he can make a fucking door appear, you know what I mean? And so it's a little bit weird, but also it's intriguing because you're sort of like, well, where is this going to go? How can
Mhm.
he do this? What is he? Why is he doing this? Of course, he's lost his memory for a reason. So yeah, it's interesting because he just makes the bloody door come out of anywhere. William Hurt is now having a chat with Kiefer Sutherland, and you're still trying to sort of figure out whether he's, as I said, like at this point when I was watching and doing my notes, I was still like, is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? I still don't know. Like it's so well. Just his character in this is so good. The way he
Well,
plays his character, and I mean, he's like that in everything, isn't he, Kiefer Sutherland? Like even when you're watching him, like I'm going to defend the president and all that sort of stuff in 24, and you're like, you're still waiting for him just to pull out a gun and start shooting everyone, I
right.
mean, he does, but he, you know what I mean? But he's
Well,
just a great
also,
actor.
this is one of the things that I did want to touch on, because in this entire movie, this is probably the silliest thing, is the way that he is acting, with the like, they're coming for you, Murdoch. The strangers are coming for you. He's got this weird way of speaking where it's just like heavy breathing in between each word.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to figure out what accent this is, what it is, where it came from. Is this something he brought to the set? Is this something he was told to do? I have no idea. But the doctor himself is apparently like modeled after an actual doctor whose name was Schreiber, who
Oh,
back
really?
in, yeah, I want to say like in the 1800s, he had like schizophrenia, and he was like keeping a journal and track of all of his experiences with it, and it really did help like propel mental illness into the future, and like, with the records that he kept and everything. So yeah, this character was based on like a real life doctor. I just thought that was interesting.
Did he have a wonky eye as well? Because in this movie,
uh
Kiefer Sutherland's got a wonky
the,
eye.
yeah, Yeah, I think that he was like Kiefer Sutherland's character, at least. Like he was, they like beat the shit out of him at some point
Yes.
and like cut his eye, and yeah, that's
Yeah.
what that's all about. But I don't think the actual doctor did.
No, that's it. But then William Hurt goes to visit an old cop who's gone absolutely mental, who's decorating the walls with spirals, very jigsaw-like. And William Hurt, he's trying to ask him details about the case, but this guy, he's sort of like, he's far too gone, you know, like he can't make anything sort of coherent out of
Yeah,
this guy.
this is Walensky, who was a detective as well, who has slowly over time lost his mind, and they don't know why. And he's
Yeah,
there to try to figure it out because, well, there's people in this world that are sensing that something is off. Walensky is one of them, and I'd say he's probably the most dramatic, like, example of that. And he has gone off the deep end. There's no like reaching him anymore.
yeah,
He is 100% set in this idea of circles and circular motions, and clocks play a big role in this as well. Time being secular, is that the word? Circular, whatever.
yeah,
But yes, it plays a role in this. The spirals, the designs that are on the women when they find them dead, this all has some kind of connection.
yeah,
And at this point, Detective Bonstead is also having his own doubts about what's going on in the world. So now he's willing to listen
yeah.
to this eccentric weirdo with the crazy thoughts and ideas, because maybe he's on to something that I'm experiencing myself. So
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that's what he's doing here. But at the end of the day, he's still gone insane. So like what he's saying is not making any goddamn sense.
No,
And
no.
not even to us who kind of know a little bit of what's going on now. But yeah, he's here to kind of fill us in on the whatever we're dealing with now is much bigger than we think it is.
Yeah, yeah, you're exactly right. But Murdoch is now following Kiefer Sutherland, who also manages to make a door come out of nowhere, and he heads to what looks like a Santa's sort of toy factory for kids that have been naughty, and they get cenobites instead of toys.
The
But
door
basically,
the door that appears here, I know what you're talking about. I think it's the strangers making the door for him to enter the building,
right?
because
Okay, yeah,
he's standing out there until the door appears. He doesn't look like he's making it appear, but yeah, they're letting him into, because we find out that he is working with the stranger. I think you're about to get into all that
yeah.
as well,
Basically,
right?
he's doing the experiments and everything for these cenobite wannabes, and yeah, that's what he's there for. And obviously, like as we go through it later on, you get like more of the reasoning as to why he's doing it and all that sort of stuff. But
Right.
at this point, once again, you're like, oh, is he a bad guy? Is he a good guy? Because it just plays on that so well in this movie, and obviously. But yeah, he goes through, and yeah, there's conveyor belts of like the worst Santa's grotto toys sort of thing in the world, and it's like you don't want any of that. But yeah, and then also at this point as well, the Cenobite wannabes, they all start to gather around a metal face in the wall that opens up to reveal a clock, and as the clock strikes 12, everything stops.
Yep.
Trains, people fall into their soup. For some reason as well, this doesn't affect Murdoch because he's running around like he's in some sort of like. It reminds me a bit like a Twilight Zone sort of episode. This
Oh
moment
yeah,
where
yeah.
like
This entire movie functions like a Twilight Zone episode for sure.
yeah, you're right. Yeah, it does. Like the more you think about it, it's just like a very like sort of intricate Twilight Zone episode. But this bit, it's very like Twilight Zone. That's where he's sort of like going around. All the cars are stopped. Nothing is happening, sort to speak. He's just like on his own going around. He's not affected, and also it's cool as fuck. Like visually, it's just really cool, and
Yeah. Yes.
and it just looks really cool. But then back at the Cenobite wannabe convention, they have this metal Earth thing that starts spinning around, that starts making buildings move, and it's bloody strange. But everything starts like changing. It's a bit like Inception, but like everything's
Yeah.
sort of moving. Buildings are like going up,
They're
moving.
just kind of like twisting around each other and growing into bigger, massive structures. One thing I wanted to point out too is the way that the architecture in this movie works. It's a hodgepodge of a lot of different places in history and globally. It's there's parts of the UK in there. There's parts of New York in here. There's parts of France in here.
Yes,
And it's
yeah,
just kind of the architecture is all just a hodgepodge of all these ideas working together, and it really gives it a distinctive feel and look. And yeah, there's just not something that you see in other films, at least that I've ever seen.
Yeah,
I just
you're
wanted
right.
to mention that.
No, you're exactly right. There's this movie. I mean, that's one thing. One of the great things that this movie has going for it is that distinctive style. And you're exactly right. Like when you said about the different places, and like in that moment where everything is like in a standstill, where the cars are. It's very like there's the place in France, like I mean, even I think it's even in fucking John Wick, one of the John Wick movies, where like where all the cars are and everything is like it looks like the place that in France that like where John Wick was and
Hmm.
stuff like that. So yeah, it's drawing inspiration like architecture wise. You're exactly right from like different places, but
This is
it
exactly what
works.
AI has in store for us, by the way.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
we allow
exactly.
AI to make a city for us, it's going to be this. It's just they're going to search the internet for different pictures of wherever around the world and create this. This is what this is.
Yeah, like basically now we're doing this episode, they're gonna feed Dark City into AI for like for things, and then that's what's
Yeah.
gonna
Oh yeah.
happen. They're just gonna use Dark City as AI, as to understand what the how the world works, even though it doesn't. But
Yeah.
then. But then anyway, so yeah, so all these buildings are moving and everything like that, and then they're going around all these places where everybody obviously is sort of like they're not well, they're just not moving, like nothing's really happening, and then they're injecting them with some sort of thing that looks like it looks a little bit jizzy, but they're weird things, basically like they're like weird syringe things they're injecting them with, and
Yeah.
then like weird things sort of happen, like there's a shot basically where you've got two people who, like I said, they put their head in their soup, but they're poor. Obviously, they don't have much money. I think he's a cop, so he's just working off a cop's wage and so on like that. But then next thing you know, because of they've injected them and all this sort of stuff is happening, they become like super rich. They live in a really fancy house. They get a giant, big
Yep.
fucking like table, like it's from like Bruce Wayne's
Yeah.
house.
This is an incredible scene too. The way that their little like tiny apartment expands into this huge mansion. This is one of the most memorable parts of the film, I think, as far as the visuals go. You could tell they put a shitload of money into this scene.
Yeah,
I think a lot of the budget went into this scene in particular. But yeah, it's just really nice to look at and very creative and just visually appealing.
yeah, it's one of those scenes where like it sort of I can imagine that Alex Proyas was like that was one of the scenes or something like that concept of everything that happens in that
Yeah.
moment and the way that's definitely one where you can imagine in him like before the rest of the movie's been made, so to speak, in his mind and what he's writing, and all the storyboards.
Yep.
That's one of the things that probably was just like it'd be really
Absolutely.
cool to have that.
It's absolutely a trailer moment.
Yes.
That especially the shot where Kiefer Sutherland is looking up at the ceiling and it becomes this big dome.
Yeah.
That's definitely trailer material.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. But then Murdoch, of course, he's confused as fuck, more than he is already because he's got like amnesia, he don't know what's going on, and to add to it, everything's fucking moving. And then he sees Kiefer Sutherland leaving the building, so he goes to have a chat with him, and Murdoch wants answers and uses his weird psychic powers to send Sutherland flying, who says he can be his basically, he can essentially be his Mr. Miyagi, who can basically teach him how to control these powers that he has, but then he runs away and everything goes back to normal. Well, not normal, but people are now sort of moving again. Jennifer Connelly is back at a bar. She's having a sing song, but basically people's worlds like even they still exist and but they're like different, like we've got so we've had somebody go from being the cop with working on a cop's wage and not
Yep.
having much money to now they're rich as fuck apparently or something, so it's doing this thing. It's changed
Well,
an
and
absolute lot.
there's a moment too where John Murdoch walks up to a newspaper stand, and the guy that's working at the stand
That's
was
right,
the
yeah.
guy from the hotel at the beginning of the movie, and he looks at him, he's just like, "Have you worked here long?" And the guy's like, "Yeah, 25 years." Yeah,
Yeah.
it matters. There's something to that.
Yeah, absolutely. Back at the Clive Barker convention, and they're talking about Murdoch like he's a Jedi, and how he's become more powerful than they could ever imagine. So the Force must be strong with this one. But they inject Richard O'Brien with what I'm assuming is Murdoch's memories. Is that right? They're like giving him Murdoch's memories. Yeah,
All
because at
right,
this
never mind.
point,
You are correct.
they go over to Melissa George's because Richard O'Brien has been given his memories, so now he
Right.
knows
So
what's going
where
on.
he's been, who he's in contact with, where he
That's it.
lives. Yes. Okay.
But then Murdoch is on a train where he has a chat with a mental guy who's decorating the walls with spirals earlier. So now he's at the train station. The guy that's gone too far from earlier on. You said his name, but obviously I'm not going to remember his name. It's W something. But anyway, he's the
Walensky.
guy. That's it. Yeah, Walensky.
Yeah.
He basically then is decided like he basically jumps in front of a train, and he's everything that he's had is sort of gone too far. And
Well, he believes that's the only way out, right?
That's right. Yeah.
He's the one that's like, look, I've been through every square inch of this city. There is nothing beyond the city. There is nowhere you can go, but I found a way out, and then jumps in front of the train.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Richard O'Brien is using Murdoch's memories to try and find him, and then finds Jennifer Connelly, but she ain't telling him absolute shit. Next, we keep on sort of cutting back between Jennifer Connelly and then Murdoch. And when we're with her at Melissa George's pad, she finds her dead with spirals all over her. And then Murdoch has gone to see some old bloke who turns out to be his uncle, who shows him images from when he was a kid on a projector, as they do in movies. But they don't really, like, it doesn't add up. Like, everything's just, things are like getting a little bit like where you're like, is this real? Is this sort of like really how everything sort of is? Because it's sort of like, here is where it's starting to try and make you understand a little bit more about what is going on and what the concept sort of the story, or who these people
Right.
are and what Murdoch is, and so on,
So
like that.
when John woke up in the bathtub and he found the briefcase or the suitcase, in the suitcase was a postcard from Shell Beach.
Yeah.
And it's from his uncle. And so he's reading the postcard, and it's like, best regards to your wife, blah blah blah, and then he puts his name on there, and he remembers looking at the suitcase. It had his uncle's initials on it. So he goes to a phone booth, finds his uncle in the phone book, and then it has the address too. Now he's going to his uncle's address. While he's there, he's showing him slides when he was a kid, hanging out on Shell Beach with his parents. And John's like, okay, well, do you know how to get to Shell Beach? And he's like, no, it's so long ago, I don't remember any of that. And then he asks where his parents are, and he says his parents died in a house fire. And then he sees a picture of himself as a kid with a burn mark on his arm. He's like, what is that? He's like, yeah, you burned yourself in the fire. And he lifts up his sleeve, and he's like, then explain to me why I don't have it now.
Yeah.
Basically, he's like, that means that all of this is bullshit.
Yeah.
None
Yeah.
of this is real.
And then as the viewer, then that's when you're like, oh, fucking hell, there's another thing to try and figure out here, because like, you're like, oh shit, like now nothing's real. What's real? Like, what's going on?
You can't trust memories. You can't trust photographs. You can't trust anything in this world.
Yeah, you can't trust Kiefer Sutherland. You can't, like, you don't know what the shit's going on. But back with Jennifer Connelly, and then they find the little girl from earlier on that was staying with Melissa George. She has she's drawn a little picture of basically the fake Cenobite. She's drawn a picture of them. More things are happening at once. Murdoch, who is now in his old room, obviously, it's weird, isn't it? Because now you're starting to be like, well, what's real? Is anything sort of real? But he's in his old room that apparently was his when he was a kid. He's looking at things from his past. You've got the Pinhead convention where they're opening up that face gig again with the clock, and the uncle has called Jennifer Connelly to tell her that Murdoch is with him, and Richard O'Brien hears this. And then we get a really cool shot of him. There's that really cool shot where he basically he's sort of almost like connected with what's going on with Murdoch and so on like that. There's like a really cool shot of him very slowly hovering out of across the city, really high up. And that's such a cool shot, and it adds to the creativity, the visual creativity of this movie is just so high level.
It's so smooth too.
Yeah,
like the way that the strangers fly through the city it's just done so well and so smooth that it doesn't even feel like it doesn't feel like there's wire work being done. It just looks natural.
Yeah.
I don't know how they pulled this off, but yeah, it's a good shot for sure.
Yeah, it's really cool. And then, of course, at this point, because, the Cenobites are doing what they do again. I keep calling them Cenobites. They're not Cenobites. don't get confused that it's not
Look,
actually a Clive Barker thing,
it-
but
you're not very wrong, right?
no,
So
exactly, yeah,
that's the important thing. But yeah, they just refer to them as the strangers, which again, look, this movie, what do you have? You have Dark City, already a boring title. I wish they would have went with something different. I know they
yeah,
had different working titles, like Dark World at one point was one of, but and then you have things like The Strangers, and even the strangers' names. You have Mr. Hand, Mr. Book, Mr. Wall, Mr. Sleep. These are not like very memorable things, and they all come off as kind of contrived and a little boring and unmemorable. And I really wish that they had just done something a little more with that. I also wish
yeah,
they would have done more with like the actual strangers themselves, like what they actually look like, other than just one coming out of the head. And then at
yeah,
the very end of the movie, there's a short little quick thing. I want to see them like what they do outside of the body. You know
yeah,
what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
I want to see them crawling around in their hive. I want to see
yeah,
them interacting with each other as the creatures instead of, they say that they use our dead corpses as their host.
yeah.
I want to see what they're up to outside of our bodies.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
like where they're going for their
unfortunately,
like, for their coffee, for their morning coffee and stuff like that.
yeah,
Like,
right, exactly. What are they? What motivates them? We understand their motivation later on. We'll get there too, but yeah, it's unfortunate that they went that route with just these generic names and titles for things and characters. I really wish they had put more thought into that and just made it a little more memorable.
yeah, you are exactly right. It doesn't, it's not overly exciting. Like what happens in the movie, which is exciting. The names, the things, lots of things, and the title of the movie, not
Right,
overly
and
exciting.
it helps when you're hosting a podcast and you're trying to remember the names of things to have interesting names instead of these
Yeah,
generic bland whatever. But yeah, I mean, you might as well call them a cenobite. It
yeah.
doesn't really matter. They
No,
put as little thought into that as anybody else has. So
yeah, yeah. You're
they're
right. You're right.
cenobites now.
They're Cenobites at a Clive Barker convention. That's it. And
Yeah,
then, but then, as I said, time stands still again. Murdoch is jumping roofs, but he doesn't get too far before Richard O'Brien turns up. But Murdoch basically slaps the shit out of him before he can get any more information out of him, everything starts to go full Inception again with the big buildings moving, and it nearly
yep,
squashes Murdoch, but he manages to get away just in time. Like the building is basically doing the thing where it's getting closer and closer to him, where he's trying to get through a window. He gets her in
yeah.
time. One of the fake Cenobites, he gets squashed to shit. And then you
I
see
will
a little bit.
say, out of all the shots in the movie, this is absolutely not my favorite. Like
It's
that
yeah,
little short scene when it squishes him between the
yeah.
buildings looks so bad. That's the
I wish.
only. It's just because there's too much blood coming out of them, especially for being that they're in corpses of
Yeah,
humans.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it just
It's a
looks a
bit.
little weird.
It's a little bit odd. Yeah, you're exactly right.
But the
But yes,
buildings moving around looks incredible. Like
yeah,
all that was
exactly. Yeah,
done
all of
top
that stuff
notch.
looked really cool. But yeah, so Murdoch, yeah, he manages to get away, as I said, but he opens the door, but the door leads to a massive drop, and as he holds on for dear life, there's a little bald kid, like a little Cenobite, and he comes and bites his hand, but he manages to get away in the nick of time and gets picked up in the car by William Hurt and Jennifer Connelly. They basically come to his rescue. Um, William Hurt is interrogating Murdoch and trying to get more out of him, but he doesn't remember anything, and seemingly certain things William Hurt can't remember. Also, being a logical person, there has to be an explanation, because he is like the logicality of the movie, as well as like Murdoch trying to find it. He's got this like William Hurt, he's got that sort of like calmness to him. As I said, the logicalness. He's like a proper detective. He's really trying to figure out what's going on. But then we start getting moments where it's like he's now like not remembering things, like things that he was like, well, of course I'm going to remember that. And then it's just like, oh shit,
Right.
I can't remember. But it's almost as if he's like disillusioned. He's almost it's just like, no, I can fucking remember it, but he can't, and once again, it's
I
like
love this scene.
the ever evolving story.
I absolutely love this scene because it's the blank slate talking to the straight man, right? The blank slate character who's seen way too much and doesn't know how to process it, trying to convince the straight man that it's happening. And it's just a really, really good scene. And especially with like with Bumstead just not believing any of this shit, and then he uses his little tuning powers to
to
make his
spin the
book.
book around.
Yeah, he's like, "Whoa, then explain that," and he can't. So now the both of these characters, this is the meeting of the minds, right? This is where they both come together and like, okay, we have to figure this out.
Yeah, that's it.
Because if nothing more, just to know. Because at the
Yeah,
end of the
you're
day,
right.
what
Yeah.
does it matter? Like, what are you going to do about it, really? We're talking about supernatural shit that just doesn't happen. But you want to know why. You want to know
Yeah.
what it is. And so, yeah, this is exactly what their mission is now. It's just, why is this shit happening?
Yeah, absolutely. But Jennifer Connelly comes to see him at the prison that he's in, because like they put him in prison for some reason at that moment, because I think they still think he's like the guy that's like murdered people and stuff. But
Right. And this scene too, this is a glaring problem with the movie. And I feel like it's the most glaring problem because he meets Jennifer Connelly and they're having their phone conversation while he's in prison. They got the glass wall in front of them. And before they say goodbye, he uses his tuning to break the glass to give her a kiss, which
yes,
is a great moment in the film. It's whatever,
romance.
but like, why not use some of that tuning to get out of your cuffs or get rid of the
Yeah,
police?
you're right. Yeah.
Why would you go back to your cell when you could just make a door appear and leave?
Yeah, you're
So, yeah,
exactly right. It's like plot holes,
this
isn't
moment,
it? It's like sometimes you're like not writing for the right reasons.
right. But yeah, that's the only moment in the movie where that just feels very lazy. The only lazy part of the film, really.
They're like, we've got science fiction, we've got horror, we've got all this sort of stuff, we've got like the detective noir, we've got to have a little bit of romance in there. So let's make him like smash the glass just so he can give her a smooch. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
as a movie and for the concept of what they've given the movie, doesn't make any fucking sense whatsoever.
No. And to be fair, like I never buy Jennifer Connelly or what's his name, Rupert Sewell.
Yeah,
Is that his name?
that's right. Yeah, I think it is.
I never buy them as a couple. I don't think
No.
I don't think these two have any chemistry between them at all.
No.
It's unfortunate. I wish that there had been something there because of the ending of the film, at least the director cut. But yeah, it's just a little strange because he's trying to convince her that they've never met. Until last night, they had no clue who they were because these strangers, and by the way, the strangers going around every fucking night, changing people's memories, changing shit around. You know how much of a pain in the ass that would have to be to do all that? But yeah, he's convincing her that before last night, they never met. And all the memories that they have of each other are implants. And she's trying to convince him that she remembers falling in love with him. She remembers meeting him and all this. And that's, her being Jennifer Connelly. I mean, how's he going to resist that? So here you go.
Exactly.
He just breaks the glass, gives her a kiss, and now he has actual feelings for her where he didn't before.
Yeah, exactly. And he's weird as well because I don't know if this could just be me as well, because I think he is good in this, the Rufus Sewell. I think he is very good in it.
Yeah, he's incredible.
But he reminds me a lot of Joaquin Phoenix. Like I think it's like the way that he pronounces stuff. He's quite like softly spoken. The way that there's the quirkiness to sometimes the way that he pronounces things and stuff like that. He's also got like the eyes as well. There's a lot of like Joaquin Phoenix in, like, when I was watching it, I was like, oh yeah, like if they were unfortunately going to reboot or remake this, if anybody's going to be that character, it's going to be Joaquin Phoenix, isn't it?
You know who their original idea was for this character? The original actor? Tom Cruise.
I mean, the problem is that I fucking love Tom Cruise. I mean, I would still watch it. So, like, that's the thing. Anybody that somebody turns around and says Tom Cruise, I mean, I would watch it and I would still say, yeah, it's going to be great. But at the same time, would it work? I don't know. I don't know.
I think a Keanu Reeves could have pulled this off. Maybe not in 98. But
well, then he was too busy probably learning jujitsu for the Matrix.
You're right. But yeah, you're not wrong. There is a little bit of Joaquin Phoenix in here. I could definitely see Joaquin Phoenix playing this character as well.
Yeah, you're right.
Tom Cruise has a very modern look. He's a very modern looking man, whereas Rupert Sewell has a look for this time period. You know, all of these characters, Jennifer Connelly, Kiefer Sutherland, they all look like they belong in this world.
Yeah,
And I
like
think that
William
Tom
Hurt looks
Cruise,
like an old school detective.
yeah, absolutely. And I just think Tom Cruise in this movie would have given it too much of a modern edge.
And there'd be a lot more running as well.
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
Just be him running the whole length of the city
Uh-huh.
constantly.
A lot more
Uh,
rooftop jumping and yeah,
yeah,
for
absolutely,
sure.
yeah. But now Richard O'Brien and his mates, they have turned up at the police station to get Murdoch, but he's gone and goes to see Kiefer Sutherland, who's at the spa again, because apparently the Cenobite wannabes, like I mentioned earlier, they're a bit like gremlins. They don't like water.
Right.
But then Sutherland pulls out the jizzy needle stuff again on him, but William Hurt stops him just in time as they get in the car and they head to the beach. That obviously, the beach being a huge part of what this story is, and obviously
Right.
Murdoch is trying to find it, and if they can even remember where they're going, because nobody can fucking remember anything. But then they get going, and they get on a rowboat, and then basically they're rowing down like the water in this city and so on like that. And
Yep.
I don't know whether it's like the back roads of this city that nobody else sort of ventures.
This is
Um,
the finally moment.
yeah,
Finally, we get an explanation to all
yeah.
of this wackiness and shit that's
Sutherland just
going on around.
lets it loose. He just tells everybody everything.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. So you find out that these strangers are aliens. They're a race of aliens that are going extinct, and they think that they can prolong their extinction by figuring out the source of humanity. It's definitely not the greatest explanation. I will admit that. It is what it is. That's what they went with. But yes, they want to be more like humans because we have a soul, and they think that the soul is the answer to longevity in life. And they think that in order to figure out how our souls work, they have to fully understand our memories. And that's where Dr. Schreiber comes in, because he has the ability to create these concoctions that go in the syringes that he can inject memories and implant different memories into the brains of the humans living in the city. And the
Yeah.
city itself is just a fucking like Twilight Zone zoo, like you said. Like
Just
this
floating
is
in
an
space.
episode of the Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
It's we'll get there, but he's just laying it all out on the line, and it is what it is.
And I
Not the
wonder
best.
as well, like when I got to bits like this and stuff, and I started thinking about like the movie in regards to like what we've already mentioned, where like it's not really necessarily a movie that is in like the modern day culture of where we are, like people talking about it or like people watching it now and so on like that. And I think there are moments where it goes very like this is a moment where you're explaining everything and it leans heavily into like the sci-fi of what this movie is and so on. And because sometimes what happens with sci-fi, especially if you're somebody like as thick as shit as me, like sometimes sci-fi overcomplicates itself, and
It does.
then it can really switch people off, which is why, because I'm not like I'm a big fan of sci-fi horror. I'm not necessarily a big fan of sci-fi because I don't think I'm clever enough to understand a lot of the stuff that happens. So
Well,
like
sometimes science fiction is like the one genre that it's really easy for it to get up its own ass
yeah,
with complexity.
and also it's a genre that's very easy to turn people off as
Yeah,
well. And I
I
think I
agree.
wonder whether that is something that might have happened with this movie, where it overcomplicates itself sometimes, even when it's like trying to explain it all. You're like, this is happening, and this is why this is happening, and that's this. And I think as we go through the movie, there's so many things happening. I'm wondering whether that's one of the things that makes people sort of switch off with this movie, where it might overcomplicate itself and then drive so heavy into sci-fi, and then people are like, oh, I don't really know what's going on.
Right, right. No, you're not wrong. I think that science fiction, like when you think of like worst worst endings to movies ever, it's typically a science fiction movie.
Yeah.
Because they've had all these concepts and these ideas that were great, but then they just couldn't explain them. And so
Mm.
the ending is just shit. But
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
as far as this movie goes, it's fine. The explanation of them being aliens and wanting to understand humanity to prolong their life is it's fine. It's serviceable and it works in the context of the film. Like I mentioned at the beginning of this, This is not a perfect movie. It's a perfect movie for me.
Yes, yeah, exactly.
So
But then, yeah, so as we sort of like, we're starting to head to like where the movie's like the destination of where this movie is going, like, physically in the movie of what's happening and obviously the end of the movie. But they finally stop rowing and they get to a place and another dead end. But this one is a picture of the beach. I keep forgetting what the name of the beach is, but basically
Shell Beach.
Shell Beach, that's it. They get to
Again, another generic name.
Another generic name. Yeah, you're right. And then they have that basically a big picture of Shell Beach on the wall, the one that keeps on popping up obviously throughout the movie. And Murdoch rips his poster down and then he starts smashing the shit out of the walls. Kiefer Sutherland is in the background telling him to stop and proclaiming there is nothing beyond that point. But guess what? There absolutely bloody is. I mean, there's sort of technically nothing because what is behind there is space. Because it's just like there's no beach, there's no like nice sun. When I remember watching it for the first time, I did think to myself, like, when he hits that wall, it was going to be like a beach there, like almost like fucking Jaws or something, because like he's breaking through that wall and they're keeping him, obviously out of the sunlight. You know what I mean? But then it just ends up being like really fucking horrible because they're just.
This is the moment in the film where we all get Twilight Zoned.
Yes,
right here. They break through. It's space. Bombstead gets tackled by one of the strangers. They both go through this hole and they're floating in space. And you can see that the city is just this. That's it. That's all that's there. It's just this circular disc with a city on top. And underneath is like a root system where the strangers kind of live. That's their hive that they live in. And yeah, this shot is really cool, but I do really think that it's not, in the context of watching this for the first time, it's kind of surprising. But if you're a science fiction fan or like Twilight Zone fan, this is not, it's not going to take you by surprise, really. I mean, you've seen this kind of ending before.
Yeah, exactly. You're sort of like I said, when I remember being taken back a little bit, being like, I thought it was going to be nice and sunny the other side, and that was going to be like the happy ending, so to speak. Right. But then it goes, as you say, full Twilight Zone, and then you're like, oh, I get it. Like, I get what this movie is trying to do and trying to be.
I feel like there was even an episode of the Twilight Zone that was this same concept, where it was humans that were just captured by aliens and put into like a human zoo type thing.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right.
Where everything, their surroundings were all fake and everything. Maybe it was a city or something. I'll have to go back and rewatch the Twilight Zone. But yeah, I mean, this is absolutely Twilight Zone behavior.
Yeah, absolutely. But they manage, obviously, the bull bastards, the fake cenobites, they're there, but they manage to capture Murdoch, and then they go back to their weird Clive Barker Star Wars place where they plan to be one with him. This is where they're basically saying, like, he can be their, they only need him to be their permanent vessel because of the powers that he has. So, and they want to shut everything down forever. But Sutherland here, this is where you basically essentially like, it almost is one of those things where you're like, oh, right, finally now they're making Kiefer Sutherland the good guy, like throughout the whole movie, you're like, is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy, so to speak? Right. And now it's the point where they're like essentially being like, he does the right thing.
Right. And what I don't understand, okay, when John Murdoch and Dr. Schreiber meet for the first time and he uses his force power to blow him across the street, why in that moment could Dr. Schreiber not have been like, look, I'm on your side. I want these guys gone, but you're going to have to trust me. I have to play along with them. Yeah. Other than the audience watching the movie, and then it would give it away. Yeah. But like that moment right there was his moment to be like, trust me. Okay. I'm here. I'm with you. I want them gone, but I have to play along and you need to like, just let me do my thing. Yeah. But he never does that.
He never does until we get to this moment, and then he injects him with obviously the fake cenobites. They expect it to be like, what they're injecting him with for them, but it ends up being where he's injecting himself into Murdoch's memory. So you've got loads of different scenes in Kiefer Sutherland playing sort of like different characters, talking him through of like, you need to remember and all this sort of stuff. Right. It's a really cool edited scene. I really like how it's sort of put together.
Yeah, for sure. And not only that, but it's just a clever way of having this character explain everything to the main character without having to explain it. And it doesn't give it away to the strangers because they don't know what's going on in his head. So all of this information, all the exposition and all this is going on inside Murdoch's head, and the strangers just think that Schreiber is playing along. So
Yeah,
I think
that,
this was very clever. Probably the
yeah,
most clever thing about this movie,
it's
besides
really
like the
clever.
special effects. But
Yeah, absolutely. It's really clever, really well done. But then, of course, yeah, he's in his basically mind explaining to what what needs to do, how he needs to, what he needs to do to stop this. And then they start the cenobite people. They basically recognize what's happening. Murdoch wakes up, and basically at this point, he essentially becomes Neo from the Matrix. He becomes the
yeah,
one. Like this, when I watched it the other day, I was like, Jesus, thank God this came out before the Matrix, because
right.
otherwise, like people would be like, it's just Neo from the Matrix, isn't it? But yeah, as I said, this came out like the year before the first Matrix. So, but he basically realizes he's the one, and he starts mind fighting the bald bastard, the main bald bastard, who they go bloody flying everywhere. And as Murdoch, and then the main bald bloke, basically they have like a mind fight. It's almost like Dragon Ball Z-esque, like where they're sort of like going up into the sky, having like, it's like, I expected one of them to be like, it cannot be, like, yeah, like very Dragon Ball Z like, and very like, as I said, Matrix like.
The name of the guy, the stranger that he's fighting, is Mr. Book.
I mean, yeah, so
How
boring,
could you
isn't it?
forget that?
How could I forget that? What a
Yeah, right.
bad. I mean, how can I podcast now without knowing any of these names? But yeah, this one basically loads of things start exploding and eroding around them, and the two of these, basically the alphas, they're flying in the sky. The old bald guy tried throwing in a knife at Murdoch, but then he reverses it, and then the old bald guy goes flying into a water tower, because obviously, remember, they don't bloody like water.
Yeah.
And then Murdoch wins. Murdoch wants his wife, but she is no longer his wife, because they changed her memory, because obviously everything is sort of, because they were already like changing everything again, and it all sort of happens. Everything changes again. But with all their power, Murdoch puts everything back together again, and not only that, with his new power, he makes a beach rise from the seas. And then, of course, this is the moment as well, because Richard O'Brien, I forgot that he actually, like, he didn't die. I thought he did die, because obviously, like, loads of them do, but he doesn't die. I don't really know why he sort of doesn't, but he just basically sort of like is explaining like the point of life, I think, to him, isn't he? And like what essentially like he can do now, I guess, to live, I think.
And basically explaining to Murdoch that, like, because he was implanted with John Murdoch's memories or whatever, he's the one that actually wound up doing all the things that. Okay, so at the very beginning of the movie, Dr. Schreiber is trying to inject John Murdoch. That's now his new implant. He was supposed, whatever was in that syringe is what he was supposed to be doing through this whole movie, but
Yeah,
because he didn't get it, he goes off on a different path. Now, when they injected Richard O'Brien in the forehead, that's what they were supposed to have injected into John. So now he's going and living that life and doing all that shit that John was supposed to be doing, killing the prostitutes and all that shit. And
yeah.
that's what he's explaining to him now.
But then also, so basically, yeah, Richard O'Brien is still sort of alive. Murdoch makes the sunrise on the city for the first time, because obviously everything, that's why it's called Dark City, surprise. But he
Yeah.
makes sunrise come on the city for the first time. And guess who's there looking out to the ocean? Of course, it's Jennifer Connelly. As they meet again for the first time, the movie ends. So we get like of course, like a happy ending. Murdoch essentially is getting what he wants, even though sort of it's not really anything to do with his real memories. It's like, it's now like, I don't know, what I mean? Like, it's not really what he experienced, but at the same time, he's now getting what he sort of wants to experience, because he feels like that's a good life, so to speak, like that beach and so on, like that. Like he's going to be, now he's creating memories going forward, and at the moment he's going to be creating them, hopefully once again with Jennifer Connelly, who has no fucking idea who he is, and hopefully doesn't cheat on him again. You hope not, anyway. But anyway, that's the movie ends. General conversation wise, is there any sort of other things that you want to talk about? Like, is there any things that you didn't know, or anything like, well, not that you didn't know, but we didn't talk about or mention?
One thing, Jennifer
Yes.
Connelly's character's name is Emma. We didn't mention that.
Oh yeah, of
But other than
course.
that, I think we covered it pretty well. And not only that, but I think we spoiled some things, but we kept it vague enough that, like,
Yes.
if anybody listening to this, going and watching it, it's going to have a completely different experience than they had listening to this. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
definitely highly recommend you watch it twice to get the full effect of it.
I mean, other than that, I mean, general conversation wise, I think like a lot happens in this movie,
Mm.
and then a lot happens straight away, and sometimes so much is happening it can get confusing. But I'll leave that for like sort of my overall thoughts as well. One of the other things as well, I put that Richard O'Brien, Kiefer Sutherland are absolutely brilliant in this. I think most of the cast are pretty good in it. William Hurt's pretty good in this as well, but there's something to the characters, as I said, like the unpredictability and not knowing of Kiefer Sutherland and the way he's written and the way that he performs the role. I really love Kiefer Sutherland in this. Like, I wish this was like sort of more of what Kiefer Sutherland did. Like, I really like Kiefer Sutherland. I always have, and but I think he's a very good actor, and I think sometimes like he gets stuck in like the Kiefer Sutherland lane, like so many actors do. But then they
Yeah.
do like the character pieces, you know what I mean? And he's
Yep.
one of those people. He's got such a great distinctive voice as well, which really helps him. But you know, with this, with the the closed sort of eye, the makeup sort of stuff, the limp, and the way that he's doing stuff or pronounces things, I think that he just like sort of stands out. And then Richard O'Brien, really, like, he's fantastic in this movie. Richard O'Brien, like, I really like
Yeah.
him. So it is a movie that's full of like good performances as well. But then and also this is like an interesting time as well because of course, like, you've got the inclusion of like CGI when it wants to, but it doesn't overdo it like so many other movies do, because it
Yep.
uses a lot of practical effects, which is obviously really, really good throughout the movie. But one thing that did stand out to me when I was watching it the other day, and you might think absolutely completely different, like I might have been off my nut or something doing it, I don't know. But one thing that did surprise me is it doesn't really have for me, a really big memorable score. And that's something that surprised me when I was watching it. Like, when you have like these sort of movies that feel like quite big movies, and this has got like quite a big landscape. Yeah, like, it feels like a big movie, this
Hmm.
movie. And for some reason, when I was watching it, I was just like, I don't ever remember. Like, I love movie
Yeah.
music and stuff and scores, but I don't really ever like. It doesn't have anything like, see, like, the music isn't bad, the score isn't bad at all, and it works for the scenes that it's in. But like, when you watch movies like these, and every scene almost feels like it has a bit of a theme, like an actual thing, and you can remember it, and you're like, oh, this music's great, or this score's great, and then it adds
Yeah.
to the impact of what the scene is giving you. I don't ever feel like that in this movie, and I
Yeah.
find that weird.
You're definitely on to something there because now that you mention it, like, I don't remember the music at all
No,
in this. It was, yeah,
it's
it
weird.
just was not memorable. Now,
Yeah.
I'm sure there was moments here and there, but, like, it's like when you hear the Jurassic Park theme song, you know what movie that came from. There's so many different scores and, like, the Star Trek: The Next Generation theme. Holy shit, that's, like, the greatest theme song ever written, you know?
Right.
And, yeah, this movie has none of that.
Yeah,
It
and it's
doesn't.
weird, and
It's
even as
unfortunate.
close to, like, we've already mentioned it a lot, because obviously there's so many like things that feel like it, like the Matrix. Like, if you think of like when you're watching the Matrix, like right now, I'm watching it, and the Matrix is such a visually, incredible movie. But even when I'm sitting here now, if I think to myself and I'm trying to be like the score of the Matrix, I'm like,
Mhm.
it's in my head. Like the sounds where it's like, "Bah," like, like, and the moments in it where like Neo becomes Neo and he becomes the one and he's starting to understand and stuff. But you've got like the score aiding that, and hitting those beats, or in the fight scenes where you've got like the insane sort of music that's going on in the fight scenes, and that's one of the things that helps elevate movies. And I don't Dark City just doesn't even have that, and it's weird to me.
No, it doesn't. It's so weird that it didn't even hit me, and it didn't even come up as, like, a point of topic for me because yeah, now that you mention it, like, it's almost like I have amnesia. I don't even remember music in this
Yeah.
movie at all.
I know, it could have just been like a movie with like zero music, and you're like, it doesn't even. It's a different. Maybe that's
Yeah,
the plan.
that's
Maybe that's
crazy.
what they were
That's
trying to do
crazy.
to us. They were trying to give us real amnesia watching it, because we're like, what's going on with the score?
No,
Anyway, we do
great
that. We're
bringing
getting
that
to
up, by the
overall.
way, because that's interesting. I would never have even thought about the music aspect of this at all.
Well, there we go. Well,
But
I've done something right. I've done something right. There we go. But overall thoughts on the movie, we do very quickly in a minute. I just want to do a couple of bit of production info and facts. One of them being, because obviously this is a huge thing for any movie, Roger Ebert called this the best movie of 1998, which
yeah,
is obviously, like a huge. I mean, if out of everything that happens with this movie, at least you can have that on your poster to say Roger Ebert thinks this is the best film of
he was
1998.
definitely a huge cheerleader for this film. And in fact, in the bonus features on the Blu-ray, there's interviews with him talking about the movie, and he goes into far more detail than I could on why he appreciates it and enjoys the film. And I don't disagree with anything he had to say. I think the movie is solid. Um, but yeah, Roger Ebert was definitely one of the bigger uh, cheerleaders for this film.
It's a
But
bit
yeah,
like, when you get, although it's a little bit different now because he sort of seems to like almost every movie, but there was the time when you get like the Stephen King stamp of approval, but now apparently he
right.
likes every fucking movie, so it doesn't
Well,
really matter
and
as much now.
we're kind of getting to that point where we're so far removed from Siskel and Ebert,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
you know what I mean, since they're
Well,
both
like
gone
Sissel and
now. And
Ebert and now Rotten Tomatoes. And yeah.
yeah, so we have entire younger generations now that if you ask them who Siskel and Ebert were, they wouldn't know,
No,
And
no,
we're gonna
exactly.
finally get to that. We're getting old, man. We're getting old.
We're getting old. We're getting up there. I know. The movie had, as you mentioned as well, the movie had a relatively modest budget of approximately 27 million, which is
Yep.
honestly as well, that's actually quite a lot less than what I thought it was. I know it was
It looks
1998,
like it was
but
more.
it looks like a fucking big movie, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yes, it does.
But to save money, the crew used clever, inexpensive techniques like stretching canvas over welded metal frames to create massive skyscrapers and use tracks and rolling carts to simulate endless corridors. So once again, like you can't knock anything when it comes to like visual side of this movie. Like, well, I mean, we said right at the start, like, and as well, like we covered Seven, one of the best visually movies of all time. Like it's so important to visual storytelling, and I think like
Yes.
that's the shame with this movie, because this is a movie that of course it's not as popularized as something like Seven. Seven is on the list of greatest movies of all time, but I would actually say, like, if you were going to do a list of like say 100 movies where it's like the most visually stunning movies of all time, this would be on that list 100%. But it goes to
Yep.
show that they clearly knew what they were doing, on a technical level, to try and achieve the effects and so on that they did for this movie, but also for a budget. Like I said, it looks like it's a way bigger budget than what they got, which is a testament to their work.
Well, especially
Um,
when you take into consideration that every single set in this movie is a set. This was all built by hand. None of this
yes,
is an actual location, and yet it feels lived in. It looks dirty. It looks like a physical place that exists in time and space. And I
exactly, yeah.
just wanted to like throw that out there because whoever was creating these sets, they knocked it out of the park. There's one in particular where Jennifer Connelly is talking with one of the strangers and she's sitting and looking out into the city.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
clearly feels like a stage, but the rest of this, it feels like an actual place that's lived in, and it
Yeah,
is incredible.
I really miss that, because I don't think, well, obviously, with CGI and green screens, and now they've got that new fucking thing that they use on everything, which is that giant screen where they put everybody in the screen with the moving things in the background and stuff
Yeah,
like that.
yeah,
Like I miss this, and I sort of get it, but at the same time, like it's a real, like you're saying, you're exactly right. It's a real. It feels like a real living, dirty, grimy place that
yes,
can exist. They just so happened to be there making a movie in it, but it wasn't. It was created for the movie, and
yep,
it looks absolutely incredible. But once again, it goes to show that the testament of what they did, because I sit there and watch it, and when I find out it got like whatever it was, like 27 million, I'm like, fucking hell, like that's
yeah.
crazy that they did it for like 27 million.
It took a
And
lot. It was a lot of matte work with forced perspective and things like that to give like city streets like depth and just scope. I'm sure there was a fair amount of miniatures models being
yeah, yeah,
used
there was. You can
for
definitely
aerial
tell, like
shots.
nearer the start, there's definitely a lot of like miniature work and stuff like that.
Right.
Especially when you're watching it in 4K, you can tell. Like sometimes it happens, but yeah, but it still looks fucking great.
Yes.
But once again, it's the tricks of the trade that we used to have. Now it's just smashing the shit out of a keyboard and CGI happens and stuff. But yeah, it was,
Yeah.
from a different time, although funny enough, it's still, I always say this, it's so funny how like the late 90s and the 2000s still film like it's like 2 years ago to me. And like, and then I realized like I was a kid
I
and I'm
saw a
like, oh
meme.
shit.
I saw a
Yeah.
meme the other day that made me feel really old because it was like it said like what I think a 20-year-old video game console is, and it's a Sega Genesis. And
Yeah.
then it's what it actually is, and it's a PlayStation 3.
Oh shit, yeah, that does make
So,
you feel
whew.
fucking old, doesn't it? Yeah. Jesus Christ, yeah. And the last one I've got is obviously once again to tie into the Matrix. After the production wrapped at Fox Studios in Sydney, several major set pieces, including the rooftops used for the iconic opening chase sequence, were sold directly to the production crew of The Matrix. So when you're watching The Matrix, there's some stuff from Dark City in The Matrix.
Yep, they reused
So
a lot of it.
yeah, absolutely. So there is that connection there as well, and also the fact that he goes full Neo at the end of the movie as well. The comparisons are definitely there as well. But very, very quickly, because of course everybody knows how we feel about this movie anyway. I always like to get our like overall closing thoughts on the movie, but I always let my guests go first. What's your overall thoughts on Dark City?
Overall, this is a solid movie with some flaws. I think that, like I had mentioned, they really needed a better title for the film, better names for these characters. They needed something in here after the audience already knows what's going on. They needed to have a scene with these creatures outside of the bodies interacting in the ways that they interact in their hives, whatever they're doing. It's unfortunate we didn't get something like that. I think that I don't really want to complain too much about like the plot of this movie because that's I think is not the strongest. And that's why I think that like a 7.5 that it got on Rotten Tomatoes, is that what it was? I think
Yeah,
that's
that's really good. Yeah,
well, it's good, and I think it's apt. This is not an 8 or a 9 or a 10 for
yeah,
me. This is definitely a 7.5, somewhere in there. Maybe an 8. I would give it an 8 if it were me. But yeah, it's solid. I think that the idea is something that has been done, but well, the city aspect of it, right? Like an alien race creating this city that's just like a zoo for humans. We've seen this, right? In different aspects of science fiction. The motivations to get there is unique to this film, with the aliens being, they're going extinct, they're trying to prolong their lifespans. I think that was interesting. I think all of the actors in this film are doing their best. Even Kiefer Sutherland with his weird performance, which I
yeah,
think is the most standout performance in this,
yeah,
is him,
yeah,
at least to
yeah.
me. Jennifer Connelly, I think, although she is, she's stunning, she's a great actress, she's a beautiful person. I think she's probably the weakest of the actors in this film, and
Yeah,
I hate to say that, but
there's not like the depth to her character as other characters have in the movie.
right. And it in some ways it feels like she's just there to be like the love interest, or she's just there to be the thing that needs to be rescued. And I wish she had a little more to do in this film than she does. But other than that, like 100% you should go watch this. If you haven't seen it, definitely watch it. This is one of those things that if you collect movies like we do, own it. You need to own this film.
Yeah,
Like you said, I definitely think if you had a top 100 list of science fiction films ever made, this would have to be in there. And definitely, if we're talking about the 90s, this absolutely needs to be high on that list.
yes,
Of
yeah,
all time, I'd say it's probably in the 20s somewhere, But of the 90s, I'd say it's in the top 10 for
yeah.
sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in regards to how I feel about it, honestly, there's not much that I don't like about it. I think the things that maybe I think this is the type of movie that is always a bit of a weird watch for me, because it's always a movie, like sometimes I watch movies and I sort of have a feeling where I almost feel a little bit sorry for some movies, and I don't know whether that's like the filmmaker in me, where I'm like, I sort of feel sorry for movies like this because of course, at the time it came out, it was living in the shadows of other movies around, like you mentioned as well. Like Titanic was a fucking big, one of the biggest movies of all time, So
Yep.
like that had that unprecedented run at the box office. So of course, all of that is going to impact a movie like Dark City making any money. And of course, it didn't financially do very well. But I sort of sit there, and when I watch this the other day, there are the things that don't really necessarily work for me. For example, I do think that the movie's quite long, but what it does is that it consistently, like, it cuts constantly, like it's constantly going from this
Yep.
scene to this scene, from this person to this person. And sometimes you feel a little bit, sometimes, especially if you're thick as shit like me, sometimes you're trying to play catch up of going, oh shit, so this is happening, oh this is happening, this is happening. And I think what I mean by where I feel a little bit sorry about movies like this is that I think sometimes that when things get over convoluted, over constructed in regards to like the concept and the idea and the story, I think sometimes it's something that puts people off. And
Mhm.
like we already mentioned, sci-fi is something that can turn people on and turn people off very quickly.
Right. Yes.
And luckily this obviously has its foot in the horror elements as well as sci-fi, as well as, I mean,
Mhm.
technically one scene of romance, I guess, but where he smashes the glass for a smooch. So
Yeah.
it sort of it puts its hand into, many sort of things. But I just, every time I watch this, I have a sense of like, I sort of feel sorry for this movie because I don't necessarily think that it gets the recognition that it probably should. But I sort of, there are parts of me that also understand why maybe it doesn't. And maybe it is a type of movie that can have a selective viewing for a selective type of audience. And this movie, I would like, for example, I wouldn't say this is a movie for everyone. For example, I don't think that this is a movie that my partner would like. And she likes a lot of great stuff, and I've introduced her to a lot of stuff. But this isn't necessarily a movie that I would probably sit down and say, you should watch this. I think you'll love this. She would
Right.
probably, she might tell me she likes it, and then she'd go to bed going, that was shit. But like, to not hurt my feelings. But that's sort of, I feel sort of sorry for this movie. The thing that stands out for me the most out of this movie is, and we've spoken about it with Seven and stuff like that, that for me, when it comes to filmmaking, one of the biggest inspirations when it comes to, me is what I see, the visual side of it. And this to
Yeah. Same for
me
me.
is one of the most, is up there with me with visually stunning movies. That if you are somebody that wants to be a filmmaker, or if you're just somebody that loves movies for how they look, how cinematic, how visually stunning they are, and how they can be created at a very high level. Alex Proyas, shows us, as he did with The Crow, he's a great visual director, and he can create
Yes.
things that are visually stunning. And like I say, The Crow is one of my favorite visually stunning movies, as well as, like, I love everything about the fucking Crow, like every single thing about it I love about The Crow.
It's
But
great.
this movie, it doesn't necessarily have all of that, but what it does do is give you like some of the best visuals that you'll see. And so if you are somebody that loves visuals, then this is the reason why you should, watch this movie, or
Yep.
go back and revisit the movie. And, and you might have, if this is a type of movie that you watch once and you were younger, well, you might do the same thing as what I did and mature with the movie as the movie's matured. And then you might be like, oh shit, that's a lot better than what I remembered. But I think this
Yep.
is a movie with a lot of very, very good things. And I think the good absolutely outweighs what doesn't work in this movie. So
100%.
that's how I think about it. But anyway, that's everything about the movie. We have the segment, of course, Your First Time. This is where you send me over your first time horror movie memory, and I read it out on the show. Obviously, with my guests, anybody that's like new, they read me out there where they tell me their horror movie memory. But where Chad has been on the show before, he's going to give us a recommendation, which you already know, so that's brilliant. But we'll do that in a second. So I'm going to read this first time horror movie memory. It was sent over to me on Instagram by Evil Playground, so you can obviously go and find them over there. But they put, here's a little story of my first horror movie experience. When I was roughly 6 years old, I was being babysat by my cousin, who is 10 years older than I am. And he was looking after me, his own younger brother and my younger brother. And we went to the video store and he rented 2 movies and we went back home and popped in these tapes. They were The House by the Cemetery and Nightmare on Elm Street 2. And these movies lit something in my brain because I was fascinated ever since, and I am still, even though they traumatized me at such a young age, as it does so many of us, it just made me want to know more. No one but myself remembers this or the aftermath of my mum yelling at my cousin, but fast forward to just last week when my cousin, whom I hadn't seen in decades, dropped in for a visit and I had him in my house to watch House by the Cemetery as a revenge screening. Although tongue-in-cheek, of course, he laughed at it and said, wow, that's a lot for a 6-year-old. So so there we
Absolutely.
go. So thank you, absolutely, thank you so much, Evil Playground, for sending that over. If anybody else wants, because I've been doing this segment in the show since I first started the show, even before I even started having guests. I think like literally the first episode of Let's Talk Horror, I always knew that this is a segment that I wanted to do, because it's not just about sharing these experiences of what people had on with other people. Like, I genuinely want to know, because I love I want to know what people's journey, I want to know what started you on your journey through horror. So if anybody out there wants a shout out on the show, and essentially look at it as free fucking promo, so you're welcome, then just literally send me over, go to any of our socials, DM me as much detail as you can, like Evil Playground did, and send me over your first time horror movie and I'll read it out on the show. But recommendation time, I know you've got one ready. Give us your recommendation.
Right. So because these movies are pretty similar, the story's a little different, the endings are very similar, but it's another movie that kind of goes under the radar and no one really talks about, and I feel like it's criminally underrated. The Zero Theorem. Can you see that?
Yes, the Zero Theorem.
This is a Terry Gilliam movie. I love Terry Gilliam. Christoph Waltz is in this, and he's just nailing this character. It's an incredible science fiction fantasy film that also has all of those hallmarks and fingerprints that Terry Gilliam puts in his films, with the sets being these grandiose, like littered with trash, incredible spectacles to look at. There's the main character lives in a like old decrepit church. So you have this like cathedral architecture all around you, while it's just literally rotting away, and like, animals are living in it with him and all kinds of shit. And basically it's just a story about the government hiring a computer. He's like a computer genius. They hire him to disprove the meaning of life, that life has no meaning. And he just happens to be somebody who is obsessed with finding meaning in life. So they kind of work together. He's being hired to basically prove himself correct or incorrect. And I think that the movie really goes under the radar. I don't hear anybody talk about this film. I think it came out in like 2013 or something. So it's even kind of old at this point, but yeah, I highly recommend. If you like Dark City, this has the same kind of tone to it. Like I said, there's some similarities there with a little bit of the story, and then also the endings are kind of similar too. So that's what I would highly recommend if you like Dark City, or if you like what we talked about here and just want to see some weird science fiction shit, go watch that.
Well, there we go. And once again, when I did this, I didn't realize that, like, I was just like, well, I've had people on the show before. They don't need to tell us their horror movie memories again. So let's get recommendations. I didn't realize how many more movies I was going to end up having to fucking watch doing this extra thing as well. So now there's another one I've got to add to the list. And also, I know that you like some fucking banging movies as well, and we've spoken about them. So I'm sure this is going to be another one that I absolutely bloody love. So another recommendation for me, and then a recommendation for everybody else as well. And as I always do say, let us know as well. Like, I want to know what you think. If there's recommendations and you actually take them on board and you actually go and watch them, let me know. But also, if he wants, go and let Chad know as well. On his Instagram as well, because I'm sure he'd like to know how you think about the movie as well. So let us bloody know anyway. But That's the episode. Now we get to the part that is also the worst part for a lot of people, although you're going to be a million times better at it than I am on wherever I fucking go. Now is the time for you to promote everything that you do with the Pretty Little Podcast and anything else that you want to promote. Now's your time to do that.
Yeah. I'm DeadBeat Chad. My wife and I, Jessica, we host the Pretty Little Podcast. It's bi-weekly pop culture stuff, usually movie reviews, film and TV. Just kind of happens to be our like go-to right now. I do have plans in the future of like branching out and other things, video games, music, things like that. And with the season that we are currently in, this is a season entirely dedicated to animation. We just recorded last night, so our next episode that comes out will be Yellow Submarine, the Beatles. Next season, we have plans on doing like more YouTube centric things, like kind of what we're doing here, audio visual. Right now, it's just an audio podcast. You can get it anywhere that you get podcasts, really. Other than that, you can follow me. I'm on Instagram at deadbeat_Chad. The podcast is there at the Pretty Little Podcast. If you find one of us, you'll find both. We're linked. So, and then my wife, Jessica, she's at just_Jess. So yeah, you can find all of this. You just go to the podcast's Instagram. You can find both of us. But yeah, bi-weekly, every other Monday.
There we go. Well, everybody go. I mean, you will be already. You bloody better be. Otherwise, I'll smash your bloody faces in if you're not. But people will be already. And if you're not, of course, go and check out everything that that Chad does with his wife with the Pretty Little Podcast. I've said this to you a zillion times. I love having conversations with you because, for one, we both love the visual medium storytelling of what a movie is. We absolutely love that. But also, it's good because you actually pay attention to what's happening in the movies and also to me. So when I don't know where we're going, at least you're there to get me back on track, which is always nice to have. But go and check out everything they do because, of course, if you're here having great conversations, you're going to be doing that on your podcast as well. So make sure that you go and everybody go and check it out. Make sure you're rating, reviewing it, following it, doing everything you can. Help everybody that you can on their journeys, whatever it is. And also, the good thing about Pretty Little Podcast is, as you've already said, you're currently doing animation. You've got there's loads of diversity, and that's what's great. I just have to talk about horror movies because I mug myself, and it's just like I love horror. And now I can't talk about Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Secret of the Ooze. I can't do all that sort of stuff as much as I'd love to, but other people can if they're doing movie ones. But with yourself, you've got the variety that you can talk about, and that's what's great about podcasts like yours as well. So great conversations about so many different topics that are out there. So everybody go and bloody enjoy it. Otherwise, I'll come after you. But in regards to the Let's Talk Horror channel, of course, I have to say a massive thank you to my honorary creepazoids over on Patreon. We've got Jamie, Rob, Leighton, Kate, and Michael. These are people going above and beyond to help me on my journey through horror. It is great. It's a massive motivator, but also Patreon is cool because you get loads of exclusives. One of them being the Creep's Choice episodes, which is essentially your very own podcast episode where you can give me a movie to watch, and I will probably say that it's shit if it is shit, which is what happens most of the time so far. They've got to stop giving me shit movies to watch because I just keep on talking about how shit they are. But so that's why it's nice doing this, because I talk about movies I love. Patreon, they keep giving me shit movies to talk about, so there we go. It's a nice diversity there. But of course, patreon.com, Let's Talk Horror channel. Go and check it out if you want to. It's there, but you don't have to, but it's there if you want to. The usual shit that I hate doing, you're watching this on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed and click that button that's right there, don't be a mug. Just do it. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything, but it helps me out more than you fucking know. Trust me, it does. I want to keep evolving and reaching new audiences. And as I keep saying on these episodes, I only get to do that because of all of you lot. So if you want to help me keep evolving and reaching new audiences, please make sure you subscribe. Don't cost you anything. As well as that, rate and review as high as you possibly can. Follow on the socials, follow on the podcast platforms, whatever you can do to help myself and Chad and everybody. If you enjoy something that people create, go and help their journeys, and it's just most of the time by clicking a fucking button that takes you 2 seconds, or it takes you a millisecond to do. So just go and bloody do it. But that's it. That's the episode. DeadBeat Chad, thank you for coming back on the show. I really appreciate you coming back on.
Thank you for having me. Anytime, man. I really do appreciate what you're doing here. I think you're creating something great. I think if you keep at it, it's going to pay off one day. I really do.
Fingers crossed. I like your optimism, because it's a lot more optimistic than I bloody am about bloody anything. But I love having you on the show. Of course, you will be coming back. But as I said right at the start, we've got to keep on trying to figure out what are the most visually stunning movies that we can talk about. Or do we do the opposite and talk about a movie that looks like fucking shit? I don't know. We'll figure it out. I don't know. But we might get a little bit disheartened by that. Maybe. I don't know. It might be a slog to try and talk about a really shit movie that looks like shit.
Hey, I will come talk about whatever, whenever you want me.
There we
Anytime.
go. Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on the show again. But thank you to everybody else that is continuing to join me on my journey through horror, or even if this is the episode that starts you on your journey through horror with Let's Talk Horror. Of course, thank you so much. It means the world to me. But until next time, stay creepy, fuckers.